Okay, so we're finished up on the last video. We're going over the telegraph with Samuel Morse. The biggest innovation with this is that it's going to connect communities almost instantaneously, at least as far as information goes. Later, this is going to come to a big advantage for the North during the Civil War. When they have more telegraph lines, they can communicate with different armies easier. President Lincoln's going to be very interested in the telegraph and uses it many, many times. All right, Howe and Singer, they're developing the sewing machine. So before we had that law mill, that's producing a lot of fabric. We've broken the British dominance on the textile industry, but we've got to turn this into clothes. This is going to allow us to have mass-produced clothes so that you can go to a store and get a shirt. Before this, you could go get fabric, but you had to take it home and sew a needle thread into whatever you wanted to make. Now this will be mass produced, much like we get these things now. That's what's going on with Singer. All right, and what this is going to do is going to lead to a lot of material stuff. There's just going to be everywhere. And we're mass producing everything, that the cost is so low that everybody is getting what they need. It looks like America is very wealthy, and it is doing well. We've got that industrial juggernaut, but we are going to have boom and bust cycles. It's going to be the business cycle. We're going to expand, we're going to get to that tipping point, and then we're going to contract. So that's going to be hard for the economy to have these little panics every now and again. Right, but we're creating a business-friendly climate. With Fletcher versus Peck, that deals with Western land. The state of Georgia bought some Western land in a land deal called the Yazoo Claims. The issue was that it had been bought through bribes. Later, there's a change in the legislature because everybody's so mad that, hey, we just got fleeced by this smooth-talking land salesman. So then that legislature invalidates the contract. It goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, no, Georgia, they pulled one over on you. That it's okay, you'll live, but you can't just invalidate a contract like that. That's not how we do it. Right? We have rules. We have things in place. A contract cannot be broken just because it was bribes that had come around. Dartmouth versus Woodward, we've been over before, whether the charter of Dartmouth College is invalid just because it was a king's charter. No, it's still in place. McCulloch versus Maryland, can a state tax a federal entity? No, it cannot. Gibbons versus Ogden, the ferry case, two ferries on the river. New Jersey is on the Hudson River. New Jersey had given one ferry a monopoly. New York had given the other one a monopoly. Who's supposed to be the only steamboat on the river? Both. The Supreme Court says this is interstate commerce. We're the only ones that can regulate that. No monopoly. Y'all got to get along. The Charles River Bridge versus the Warren Bridge. This is all within Massachusetts, so it doesn't have to deal with it doesn't have to do with national. This is going to be coming from the Massachusetts State Court. But two bridges. The Charles River Bridge was their first. They believe that they have the right to be the only bridge on the river, but Massachusetts allows the Warren Bridge to be built, cutting into the Charles Bridge. These are toll bridges, so it's cutting into their profits. So what's going to happen here is that the Massachusetts Supreme Court is going to say, nope, you can't do that. All right, sorry, I'm getting a little confused here. They're going to side with Warren Bridge, and the reason why they're going to side with Warren Bridge is that the Charles River Bridge, it doesn't technically say they have a monopoly. And if there's any haziness, they say that a contract is going to be honored that benefits the public and not necessarily the business, if there's haziness in the contract. All right, distribution of wealth, the rich are getting richer. That's the easiest part about this. The rich are getting richer. As these factories are making money, it's going to be going to the people who own it. All right, Samuel Slater, he's going to be the father of the factory system. What's going to happen with this is he goes over to Britain, and he has a photographic memory, and he remembers all of the machines and how they work. So he can bring them back over here and build his own factory. Later, law is going to improve the system, right? And the basic thing here is we're going from cotton to produced fabric, all in one fell swoop. And this is what law looks like in 1814, and so it's kind of rural. This is what it looks like in 1850. Notice the smokestacks. We're getting away from water wheels now and into coal-powered plants. That's what the law mill looks like. One of the big things about the law mill is the workforce. It's mainly going to be young women, right? Either from the farms where they don't have anything to do until they get married, so they can produce their own dowry, or either Irish or immigrant women. And this is what law sparked: complete dominance in the textile industry, especially when you compare it to the rest of the country. You have some down here, you got a lot up there. Right? So you have the young woman going off to work with law. She's probably about 14, 15. She looks a little older there. But she's waiting around to get married, so there's nothing really for her to do on the farm. She goes off to law. She's, one, going to have a job, so she's going to have something to do. Two, she's going to be bringing in money that's going to pay for her own dowry, which is basically a payment to her future husband to marry her. The other thing is that she's going to get some education. She's going to have her morals looked out after because she's going to be living in a dormitory, and she's going to get religious instruction as well because they are going to have a church. Right. From the law girls, they are working a lot. It's basically 13-hour days. Right. And you're going to be living in these boarding houses. Your life is really regimented. And so if you take a look at this, bells, first bell 4:30 a.m., second 5:30, third at 6:20, you're in, and then your last bell evening ring out is at 6:30. Right. So your life is very, very regimented, and it's basically Monday through Saturday night, and then Sunday you get off. There is no concept of a real weekend yet. They are also going to get instruction on basic writing, reading. They are going to have a newspaper that is going to print some of their own poetry that really taps into that. This isn't necessarily the best working environment for them. It's loud, you can lose fingers, it's a lot of smoke, it's a lot of things that's not good for your health. So they kind of look at this as an opportunity, but it's also a prison too. There's a song written about this, basically a law girl singing to her potential husband, "Pity me. Pity me, my darling, pity me today, pity me, my darling, and take me away. Get me out of here. I don't want to be here." And basically it talks about next year when I'm married, when the morning comes up, when they ring those bells for me to go to the factory, I'll be in my bed. Sorry, I'll be in my bed. Right. Irish immigrants are also going to be working at law, so that's going to be a big thing, but the Irish aren't necessarily welcomed when they first get here. They're seen as drunks, they're seen as anarchists, they're seen as papists or Catholics who are going to be more tied to the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope than they are to America. So they're seen as dangerous, and they're looked at with a little bit of disdain. Right, Commonwealth versus Hunt. Basically, what that court case is about, there was a bootmaker, right, and he decided to do some free work, but he belonged to this union, so the union fined him, right? Then he's going to do the same thing time and time again until finally the union is going to get his boss to fire him. He sues. It goes to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. This isn't a federal government case. It goes to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. The interpretation of it is going to be important. What he's arguing is, can a union get me fired? Is that legal? This Massachusetts Supreme Court case says that yes, they weren't intimidating you, they weren't threatening you with violence. So they were going through legal means, so yes, they can. If it's going to, what this court case is going to do, it's going to make labor unions legal, or have legal standing. So what's happening in America in the 1850s? Well, we've got regional specialization. The North is where everything's going to be put together and made, right? Textiles, machines, that's where it's going to be produced at. The South is cotton. You're going to have those plantations, cotton, a little bit of tobacco, but mainly king cotton taking off, especially with the cotton gin. And then the West is corn and wheat with our bread basket. All of them are working together, so the West is feeding the North and South. The North, or the East, is making stuff, and especially with the textiles, they're getting that cotton from the South. Excuse me. And the American population centers in 1820 compared to those of the 1860. What's the difference here? Well, one, they're growing. Two, they're moving west. If you take a look at St. Louis, Mississippi, Chicago, all of those are going to be huge cities now that are starting to drain more power away from the east to the west. And the national origin of immigrants, we have a lot of German immigrants, but we're starting to see many more Irish immigrants. The biggest thing here is the famous potato famine. Right? If you're an Irish farmer, you're growing wheat, you're growing corn, but you're also growing potatoes. The biggest thing is potatoes can't be taxed. They're underground, so the tax man can't see them, can't tax you on them. You can tax you on the wheat and the corn, but he can't tax you on the potatoes. So that's what they're eating, the wheat, the corn they're exporting. It's also having to do a lot with British colonialism in Ireland and their laws, but we have a disease that's hitting these, it's a fungus actually, that's hitting these potatoes and turning them black and moldy before they actually mature, and that is most of the Irish diet. It's told on average that an Irishman eats 10 pounds of potatoes a day in the 1840s. And now you're taking that away from him. Most of his calories are gone. So you've got three options. Starve. That's an option, not necessarily one I would take. Two, you could steal the corn and the wheat. And if you get caught, you're going to Australia, which isn't really a nice place. It's not shrimps and Barbie and surfing. It's basically, oh my God, this continent is trying to kill me. Or three, you can immigrate to America. And that is what is happening very much so in the 1840s. But with these Irish immigrants is this idea that they're going to change our culture and they're going to take our jobs, they're going to bring Roman Catholicism here, and they're going to be drunkards and all this stuff. So you're going to start to see people that are going to see themselves as nativist. Nativist does not mean Native Americans as in Indians. Nativist means to protect America for Americans who are here that are working. It's basically, nativist means anti-immigrant, xenophobic. Don't want the foreigners here, they're going to change too much stuff. And this is actually going to be the basis for a political party. The Supreme Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, the Know Nothing Party, or the American Party. Their main goal is to prevent or stop reverse immigration. These are the type of guys who are going to go down to the port of New York City, and when Irish immigrants are getting off the boats, they're hurling rocks and bricks at their head. Now, on the other side of it, the Irish are also going to be welcomed into the country by Democrats in New York City, Tammany Hall, who are going to be there with sandwiches, with soups, with coffee, welcoming and giving them jobs, getting them set up here. So there's kind of always this, I don't want you, but come on into America, we need you. Right? I don't want you, but we kind of need you. And that's kind of the way we've been with immigrants in our country for quite a while. All right. And the last big thing here is the occupation distributions. Agriculture is declining. Industry is ramping up. We don't have a flip just yet, but we are definitely getting a bigger thing with manufacturing, and agriculture starting to decline. What's happening is that mechanization is making agriculture more profitable for few. Cotton gin makes plantations get bigger, but there's fewer plantations. Those western fields are getting bigger, and they're going to be able to be farmed by fewer and fewer families, but have more acreage. All right, and that's the end of the market revolution, and we'll pick up later with another topic.